Hello, welcome to Musashi Japan's knife selection video. This is a Santoku. San means 3, toku is virtue. So 3 virtue knife, meat, fish, vegetables. It's the perfect home cook style knife. It's not too long, really nicely controlled. There's a bit of a curve to it so you can still do your rocking chops. It's the perfect knife if you can only have one knife in your home. So we're gonna cut an onion here. It's got a nice length, so it's not too long for the onion. You don't wanna be using a huge knife for this because you wanna get nice lots of chopping motions going on. When you're chopping, you get really thin little slices. Perfect separation between each piece. You can also use the tip of the knife if you wanted to do more of a diced. It's the perfect size to slice down and push in between each of the pieces. And notice that my wrist isn't at a really crazy bent angle because the knife's not too long. So you have good tip control on this knife. Nice little slice this way. Then we can do a fine little burnoise. Also with the curve of the knife, you can follow through with that rocking motion, finish off any leftover little pieces. We can do carrots as well. Just a simple little rock. There's almost no effort when you push down through the knife. Very easy. And then when you're using the rocking motion of the curve again, you just get nice rocks. Japanese knives, however, are more designed for that push or that pull cut. An example, this is a push cut, and even with the curve, it's still perfectly usable. Pull cut, same thing, but backwards, and then chops, just like that. So as the Santoku is a really good all-purpose knife, you can do vegetables, you can also do meat. It's very good shape. Just to quickly slice through a piece of chicken. I like to butterfly my breasts if I'm doing a cutlet or something, or some diced chicken, and I have some more evenly sliced pieces. Almost no effort from the knife. Yeah, voila. Here we have a gyuto. Similar to the Santoku, this is an all-purpose knife, but it's a little longer, which makes it better for cutting meat. This is more your chef knife style. Still has a really nice curve to the blade, so you can get lots of rocking action going. Really great for mincing garlic. But it's a little longer, so you get those nice slices in. If you're trying to trim fat off a piece of beef or pork, or trying to cut some nice roast or your steak or something, you want to get nice thin slices, it's a really good knife for that. I really enjoy how these balance in the hand too. I feel like I can do a lot of damage with one of these knives. All right, cutting some onions. Similar to the Santoku again, you can get nice thin slices, good point control, fine dice work. These knives are also really great for top and tailing some garlic, getting some nice thin slices, and getting that rocking motion going. I feel like it can go a lot faster with a gyuto. Just because of the length, it feels a little bit more controlled for me. It might just be because it's how I was trained. It's really nice. Just after a few seconds, you almost have a perfectly mashed garlic. Looking at my piece of meat here, and try and trim off some of this fat, maybe cut some of this off, see if I can't get this pork loin out of here. Gyutos are really nice because of their length. Nice slices and carve right through this fat cap. And then if you wanted to slice that into some thin pieces for slicing off, a really good knife. Now this is a bunka. Very similar to the Santoku, but it usually has a bit more of a straight edge, as well as this very iconic reverse tanto cut-off tip. Nowadays, this style of knife is only allowed to be used by like the head chef in a professional kitchen. Everybody else is supposed to use the rounded tip. Originally, bunka actually translates to culture. A long time ago, Japan only had fish and vegetables in their diet. When they got introduced into the meat world, they needed a new knife. So they took that vegetable cleaver and just cut the tip of it off to make it better for slicing tasks. These really fine, thin slices. Yeah, not bad. Really nice to control. Do some nice thin push cuts. Bunkas are really good for slicing tasks as well. Using this fine tip, you get really good tip control. Get nice little slices just with the tip of the knife. As you can see, bunka, and it's more straight edge, much better for slicing tasks than it is at chopping tasks. It is an all-purpose knife, so you can do both tasks with it. It's just a little more convenient for doing those nice slices. This is what we call a kiritsuke. Its proper name is kiritsuke gyuto because it's got that same nice long edge that the gyuto does. The kiritsuke is usually a little bit straighter and it has that reverse tanto tip. Really good for slicing meat, chopping vegetables. It's one of my favorite all-purpose knives. With the tip of this knife, you have really good tip control because that tanto tip is very sharp. Great length on these. You get those nice, long, clean slices. The length is probably the best for cutting meat. This is what we call NIKARI. It's a vegetable cleaver. It's a very thick spine and a nice straight edge, perfect for chopping vegetables. Even peeling sometimes are really good for. A little heavier front balance than some of the previous knives, like the Santoku or the Gyuto, but it's really designed to help you get through any like tough vegetables, carrots, potatoes, cabbage, really good vegetable knives. However, they're not the best at meat just because of the shape. It's hard to get that nice kind of slice to go through meat with, but any vegetables, this is the knife you want to be using. Even peeling tasks with these knives are very simple. Doesn't take much effort at all to get through the potato. Get into a nice couple of big chunkies. Say you're boiling some mashed potatoes or something. Don't need to get too fancy with it. Just really quickly, all chunked up. One of the restaurants I used to work at, we used to have to go through, I think it was like 15 big bunches of green onions every day. This was the weapon of choice in that restaurant, let me tell you. Just a little square up, and then off to the races. Most of the knife will do the work for you in this. Very quickly goes right through all the green onions. I'm just spraying all over the counter here. Another great attribute of this knife is how long and how tall it is. Really helpful when you're trying to do a big piece of cabbage like this. Just give it a little press in the middle, flatten it out a little bit, and we can get nice little strands of cabbage very simply, just like that. Ready for a salad or garnishes or under your tonkatsu. This we call an USUBA. It's almost exactly the same as the NIKARI. The big difference is this is actually a single bevel knife. So this side of the knife is sharpened and planed. The back side is almost completely flat. The big advantage is when you're doing a peeling task, you can get very thin little peels, especially when you're doing katsuramaki, or you're making that ribbon peel all the way around the daikon. The big disadvantage of one of these knives is if you're trying to cut straight down, it'll actually follow this angle and plane off to the side. So you have to correct that by putting a little bit of outward pressure when you cut down. And you can get straight cuts, it just takes a little bit more technique to get through. For example, this is what we call katsuramaki. So you take your knife, peel it under the skin of the daikon. And we just keep working our way. When we get to the end of the peel, we can either pull up and cut this off. We don't need the skin anymore. So when you take your big strips like this, cut it into some pieces, soak it in water for a little while, and you can cut it into nice little ribbons. And this is how you make the daikon tsuma for underneath your sushi piles. You have like your sashimi sitting on top, and this is your nice little garnish. Makes a nice little bed underneath your sushi pieces. You just peel off the skin of the cucumber nice and gentle, trying to keep that just under the skin but not come through, all the way till we start seeing seeds come out, and then you're just left with the seeds in the core. And then this is how you get the perfect little cucumber baton for inside your sushi rolls, like your California roll or your veggie roll. But just like the NIKARI, the USUBA is really, really good for just chopping through vegetables. Almost no effort at all. You just push through a whole bunch of carrots, get your rengiri, nice little diced pile of carrots. So these are petty knives. We have a couple of different types here. This first one, this is kind of your more traditional double bevel classic petty knife. Really good for peeling tasks, cutting some cheese, mincing some garlic. When your Gyuto or your Santoku is just too big for the task, this is the knife you want to use. It's got some good weight behind it. It's nice and strong. Apples aren't too hard. It's really good for fruit knives. Some light vegetable work, but not the most vegetable work. I mean, I'd be kind of worried to do like a carrot with one of these knives. When you're chopping, it might skip and catch a finger. But for doing light, soft fruits, maybe an onion, some cheese, it's a really great knife to use. The second petty here, this is actually a single bevel petty knife. It's much better for peeling tasks, getting those nice thin little slivers of things. And again, this is only a single bevel knife. So if you're trying to do those straight cuts, it'll pull to the side. It's a little tricky to use, but really fun once you learn that technique. Even better for peeling. Get really thin, tiny little garnishes. If you wanted to use this apple peel for like a cocktail or something, you get really accurate control over the slicing. It's also really, really good for doing little cucumbers and stuff. Sometimes your big knife is just too big to pull out. You don't want to wash it, it's too long for you. So these little knives are also really, really good. Light little vegetable works like that. This last petty knife, this is more of a garnishing petty knife. It's very tiny compared to the other ones. This one's really, really good for doing little garnishes in like a strawberry rose or like little mushroom caps for detailed garnish work. You get fine little control, get some nice little almost see-through slivers of garlic off of there. Or if you're doing like a strawberry rose or some mushroom garnishings, you can really choke up and hold the knife itself. It's really light and little and controllable. And then you can do nice little presses into a mushroom. This next knife is called a honesuke. This is a traditional Japanese chicken knife. The fine tip is really, really good for getting around bones, deboning this way. And then when you have a joint in a chicken, you'll break the joint open and use the triangular shaped heel to really push through those joints. It could be used to break down bigger things like a beef shank or pork belly or something like that where you're trying to get around bones, but it's more apt at doing chicken just because of the size. Let's get some chicken wings. So use the knife, hold it open, find your joint, and the tip of the knife can be used to get in between the bones. This is what we call a Hakata. Very similar to the bunka, except it has this iconic curve in the back of the spine. I think the idea for this is it actually be turned upside down to use to help scale your fishes. And with the tip of this knife, you can use it very similarly to other fish boning knives to get right under those fish bones along the belly. It's also strong enough to cut the head off the fish. Nice edge control, very good tip. Get under those belly bones. And this knife isn't explicitly a fish knife, but it does work very well as one. Can be used for other meats, larger fish, smaller fish. This is what we call a Deba. This is a single beveled fish knife used for breaking down whole fish. It's a very thick spine for crushing through the spine bone, cutting the head in half, and helping you fillet the knife. The single bevel of this knife is really good for getting really close to those bones and missing as little meat as possible. When you're using the knife, you want to just score the skin, and you can go back, get deeper into those bones. Very Japanese knife. Most Westerners will use that really thin, kind of flexible boning knife, but I much prefer one of these. It's got a really good blade weight and really gets the job done. Here we have a yanagiba. This is your sushi slicing knife. First you would use a Deba to break down a whole fish, then you use your yanagiba to slice your sushi or sashimi. It's also a single bevel knife, so it's flat on this side and has the chamfer on this side. The idea is when you're cutting your sashimi pieces, it'll push the material away on the side of the bevel, but leaves a perfectly clean slice for your next piece. This knife is what we call a tako hiki. Tako is octopus, hiki is to cut. Similar to a yanagiba, this is a single beveled slicer knife. So the back side is flat, and the front side has got that chamfer on it. But unlike the yanagiba, this knife is much thinner this way. So octopus is normally a much tougher, chewier meat, so you can get away with using a thinner knife to get even thinner slices through the octopus. Don't have any octopus today, but we're gonna cut some fish. The technique is almost the same. You want your one finger on the back of the knife, good grip, and then a nice straight pull through the fish. This knife is called the sujihiki. Suji is sinew, or the connective tissue between muscles, and then hiki is to cut, or knife. So sujihiki is your slicer knife, normally designed for cooked meat or big briskets, rack of ribs, big roast turkeys. This is your slicer knife. It's also very good at doing fish as well, because you have that nice long blade, it makes very clean cuts. The sujihiki, although it does do a really good job at fish, it's more designed for meat. Get those nice slices, peel that fat right off of the meat. If you're doing a nice stir fry or something, you want those nice thin slices, you can get those with this as well. This knife is what we call a bread knife, or a serrated blade. It's a slicer knife in essence, but it has these serrated teeth. Best used for when you have something nice and soft that you don't want to crush with a straight blade. These little saw teeth will help you start to make a cut without actually crushing what it is that you're cutting. So best use for a nice soft bread or like a croissant or a muffin, something that you really don't want to squish, but you get those nice slices out of by making that nice clean saw motion. You probably get nice really thin slices, nice big thick chunkies. The idea is that you're sawing through the bread without having to crush down through it. Another great use for serrated knives is tomatoes. Because like I was saying with the bread, you don't want to squish it, crush it. Same thing with tomatoes. Sometimes they can be filled with a lot of water, so you don't want to crush them with your knife. So a serrated knife is a great way to get clean slices without breaking or crushing the tomato. This knife has the Japanese-made Chinese cleaver. Great big blade for chopping things, for smashing through chicken bones. It's a very versatile knife, but it's very large. It takes a bit different skill to get used to, but a lot of chefs only use this knife. It's so heavy, but once you get used to it, it's really nice. With cabbage, it takes a bit of a different chopping technique, but you can still get really nice, fine shreds. I know a lot of European and Western chefs will have like a chef knife and a petty knife and a vegetable knife. And I know a lot of Chinese chefs that will only use this one knife. They get so good with it, they end up like spinning it in their fingers. You gotta look it up on YouTube, it's really cool. Totally be used to chop your chicken wings as well. Just gotta make sure you hit the joint, just like that.